goodness. Big move Monday. Look out. A way to end the tournament.
What's happening, people? Welcome back to the Quad Pod. We've got the usual suspects of Austin, Robbie, Kevin, who's a little sick, and myself. We are sponsored by Poseidon Strength, as I am rocking a little Poseidon today, as well as Adidas Wrestling. Use the discount codes QP25 on adidaswrestling.com, as well as QuadPod on Poseidon Strength. And gentlemen, we've got some really good things to get into. So much so that we once again have to kick some different topics that we wanted to jump into kind of down the road a little bit further. And sorry to the man that, I should say person, because I'm not even sure if it's a man, to the person that commented on our Spotify page, saying that we didn't talk about the True Third matches last week, and I said we're going to get to them this week. Sorry, there's so many other things that we're going to dive into that maybe we will
Shout
come
out
back
to my guy Ian Parker.
Yes,
And his
for
awesome
sure.
mustache.
Maybe we'll come back to those True Third matches, because there were some really good matches in there, and even though it's we're a couple weeks out from that, we could talk about those maybe leading up to the Jax Forest and Vito match. But the things we're going to get into, obviously, the Bo Bassett news. We'll also talk Cody Chittum. I was able to get some information from some reliable sources that shall remain nameless on what is happening with Cody Chittum and how the whole thing played out there. We'll also talk coaching changes, some movement, things like that. I was fortunate enough to talk to Scott Green, so we'll give you a little sneak peek of that interview as well. But we'll get into all the coaching carousel, and then we'll talk about Ryan Crookham and the latest news on him getting a medical red shirt and being able to have 3 years to compete. But before we get into that, obviously, we always have to weigh in first, and we'll keep it a little bit short because we know we want to get to these pretty big topics. So first and foremost, I'm going to weigh in on our ex-Olympic and world team heavyweights who have now moved on to be doing side quests, I guess. I wouldn't even consider them side quests anymore, honestly, because Mason Parris is in camp, I guess mini camp, rookie camp, whatever you want to call it, with the Chargers. And Gable Steveson, we've seen him, and I got to say it, he has incredibly improved, honestly. The hands look pretty damn good from what they looked like before. So he has been hitting mitts and getting ready maybe for an MMA fight. Unsure of when or if that will happen. At some point I will reach out to Gable, see if he'll do an interview to talk about, prepping for that. And obviously we know that he has trained with John Jones, the newly retired John Jones. But him and John are obviously close, and we've seen them in pictures and training together and a whole bunch of other things. But it's pretty cool. And I know people get really mad that our best heavyweights move on from wrestling, but honestly, it's pretty cool for me to see Gable move on to WWE as well as the NFL, and then to see Mason Parris getting a chance to get back to football. Obviously, football is a passion of his. If you haven't, look up Mason Parris and just look up Mason Parris football or high school football. Can't remember what that website was anymore. Might have been Max Preps. I'm not really sure, but look at his high school highlight tape. He's number 7, and he is running people down. He looks like the water boy, to be completely honest. But now he is in rookie mini camp, I guess, with the Chargers, which honestly is really cool. Looks like he's playing some H-back, so playing some offense. And it's unsurprising that after the Michigan Pro Day that he signs with former Michigan coach, at least for camp, with Harbaugh. And obviously they're very familiar with each other. So that was pretty unsurprising. I thought it was honestly really cool that that relationship got him a chance to be in the NFL and maybe have a tryout or whatever else. So he's been going through camp, and all that looks really, really cool. So hopefully he has a chance to make the roster. Unlike Gable, he has played a down of football before playing in the NFL. So the athleticism is there. He doesn't have the size to be a linebacker anymore, but if he's going to be playing some H-back, maybe he's got good hands and can catch the ball out of the backfield. We're pretty sure he can probably hit some guys, knock some dudes on their ass. But for me, that's really cool to see our heavyweights moving on to other things that they want to do. You know, wrestling has served its purpose for them. Maybe for now, maybe they come back in 2028. Who's to say? But for right now, it's really cool to see these guys doing what they want to do. And with that, I'll move on to Robbie, who's got a little bit more heavyweight talk.
Here we got our perennial babyface Colton Schultz moving on to a new role at Arizona State after what seems like 14 years of eligibility. He is joining the Spirit Squad, the cheerleading team. I can only assume it as like the base or stunt person because he's gigantic and probably can, he throws giant Russian men around. I think he can probably throw some 100-pound women up in the air pretty easily. So kind of cool to see that route. Might be joked about a lot, but male cheerleaders do require a crazy amount of athleticism and strength. So it'd be interesting to see how that plays out. I don't know how NCAA eligibility works with that, depending on whether it's like a sideline cheerleading or a competitive team. There is an eligibility component, but I don't know if it's like a Wanky situation where it's a different sport, so he still has eligibility, or if it's not. And
For you young kids, that is Florida State quarterback Chris Winkie. Just figured I'd put that out there.
But I don't know. It'd be kind of cool to see him in a different role, and I don't know. He seems to really like it, and I don't blame him. If I was a young single man, I probably wouldn't want to leave Tempe either. So more power to him.
Dr. Schultz.
Enjoy it. Enjoy it while you can. That campus is phenomenal. I'll say that.
Agreed.
And with that, I hand it over to the jokester, who is a little bit sick, to Kevin.
Yeah, I've got a lot to riff off of everything you guys just talked about, so I'm excited. I was going to do my shout out for Scotty Sentez getting the executive director at Wrestlers and Business Network. He's awesome, obviously leaving Campbell, and we'll talk a little bit about that later, so I don't want to get too much into it, but I do want to say it's awesome. He left them in such a great spot with fundraising and, all the stuff that happened before the season started with the questionable scholarships or them been taken away or all this stuff that was really going to hurt a program that had been building itself up pretty successfully over the years. But it's good to see him get to move on. They've got some good potential coaches to take over there. But I digress. We'll get to that later. One of my favorite things that will pop up on Instagram every once in a while is Lorenzo Neal blocking for Mike Allstott. And like Lorenzo Neal was a state champion wrestler in California. And so him just like destroying dudes. And then like the next guy in line gets to deal with Mike Allstott. Like that's just badass. I love that. So that's what makes me think about Mason Paris. Also, shout out Fire Up Chips Bubba Gritter. I remember. So like
Bubba Gritter reference.
Yeah, Bubba Gritter reference. I think he was a 2-time All-American. But we were walking around Central's campus. It was like the first weekend or whatever there. And there were like cheerleaders or whatever trying to get people to join the cheerleading squad. And they're like, hey, come over here, see if you can throw her up in the air. So Bubba walks up and he throws this girl up in the air, catches her on his hands. And they were like, holy shit, you have to join the team. And he was like, I'm on the wrestling team. And they were like, that makes sense. So yeah, it translates well, those skills, I'll say.
It certainly does. Shout out to wrestlers that get to have side quests and do other really, really cool things. Now I know that we've worried about the top of the lineup right now so far, but Austin's gonna go the other way back to the beginning of the lineup. So Austin, why don't you take it away?
Yeah, it was announced last week officially. Ryan Crookham did get his medical redshirt season for his injury last year, which was pretty well expected. When injury went down, and then confirmed, about a few days before the AWAs that he wasn't competing, so he was officially out and was able to get that. And that Lehigh program, those lower weights are going to be tough, man. They got Sheldon Seymour coming back at 25. Crookham, who was pretty much number 1, number 2 all year, slides in at 33. And then you got Stanich, U23 USA rep, U20 rep coming up, 141, 2 weight classes. He was an All-American at 125. So they're going to be tough in those 1, 2, 3 spots right there. And then even 125, Mason Ziegler, won U23s this past month here. So, they got a good lineup down there, and it's going to be really fun at NCAs. With Lucas Berg coming back, Ayala is going to be in the mix. Romney, Zan Fugit from Wisconsin. Crookham's going to add a nice little wrinkle into that weight class as well.
Yeah, and we'll get back to the topic of Crookham and his injury and getting that medical red shirt and kind of what that means, right? Because we've seen other guys that have tried to get it and not get it, specifically Lehigh guys that have tried to get it and not get it. So we'll come back to that at the end of the show. But let's get into Bo Bassett. This entire thing went way faster than anyone expected it to, especially after how long it took him to get to his decision he was going to go to Iowa. It was pretty wild. I got a text message maybe an hour or an hour and a half before the Minio tweet, before any of that, right? I got a text like an hour or so, maybe an hour and a half before, saying, "Hey, are you hearing anything about Bo Bassett decommitting from Iowa?" And I was like, "This is the first I'm hearing about it." And then, cut to an hour, and then in our group, there's the Minio tweet of him saying something's going to happen at Iowa. And not 10 minutes later, I feel like Bo Bassett already posted that he was decommitting from Iowa. So it happened very fast, very surprisingly fast. And you don't really know what to make of it, but you obviously want to point to, well, somebody screwed up. Like, who screwed this up? What happened? And it hasn't even, I think at this point, it's now 24 hours. As this 24 hours has passed, obviously a lot of things have come out. A lot of things have been said. Willie brought up some really great points on their show this morning. I watched that as I was, getting ready for the day. And I didn't watch what Flo had said outside of some clips, so I don't know all of the other details that Christian may have added to it. Maybe one of you guys watched it or seen it, and you can add that. But the things that I heard were, I think, since Willie and I kind of run in the same circles to a certain extent, we're hearing a lot of the same stuff, right? The issues about, there was an argument between a parent and Bo's or a parent and the coaches. But then as the day goes on, Bo's little brother chimes in and says, and I'm paraphrasing, but I will put the tweet up on the screen, or the post up on the screen, but I'm paraphrasing of like, he's saying like, we just wanted the same things that other recruits get from their schools. And the issue with that statement is you don't get the same things that other recruits get from their schools. It doesn't matter. Like, think about this NIL era, right? You don't even get the same things that your teammates get. So there's no situation that is equal. There's no situation that is the same. So if, Jax Forrest is getting, trips to Oklahoma State to train, it doesn't necessarily mean that Bo gets trips, or Bo and his brother, for that matter, get trips to Iowa to train too. The things don't have to be equal. If that statement holds up, right? Like if he is saying all we wanted was to be treated the same as these, that's the reason why you go through the recruiting process, because none of these situations, none of these coaches are going to treat you the same. So you can't say, now that I'm here, I still want that. If you wanted that, you should have went there. Point blank, period. Right. But, again, he is speaking on behalf of his brother in that sense, where he says, we wanted this, we wanted that. But like, I think in this sense, right? Like you hear Tom Brand saying, you can hear it, right? Is I run this team. This is my team. It has been his team forever. He's not going to change how he does anything. And if his compliance says that they can't do it, or they can't do certain things, then they're not going to do that. I think there's a lot of teams that probably work in that gray area, right? But like, and especially in this NIL era, and NIL is going to be certainly changing, which is the other point that Willie brought up of like getting your your deal done when Bo got his deal done meant that he was going to have to be paid out. It was going to be go through the old system and all of these other things, right? I highly recommend going, if you have not, go and listen to the points that Willie brought up. He made up a lot of really, really good points that I agree with. I'm not going to reiterate them when you can literally just go listen to him. But I do think that the point does stand in that you don't get to demand what other coaches are giving other wrestlers. So to me, it sounds kind of like jealousy if that statement holds up for the whole Bassett team, right? Because considering he started that sentence with saying we, and those demands don't hold up. So the situation could have went awry, but then on top of that, let's be honest, with NIL, recruiting literally never stops. It never stops. Even guys that have been signed, they're about to potentially get rid of poaching. There's another court case that it deals with football right now. So I'd recommend looking it up, but it's like a kid that's now a Miami player who was poached to go into the portal, and now they're suing, and there's a whole bunch of other rigmarole with it. But if that holds up, and tampering could be potentially thrown out the window. So that's something else that we may inevitably lose, of like a true tampering rule. But like these things, they don't stop, guys. Like recruiting doesn't stop. I don't care how many logos Bo wants to throw up on a graphic. When he pulled somebody off of that graphic, I'm sure that certain schools never stopped actually calling, even down to when he made his announcement. So, Robbie, I'm going to come to you. What were your thoughts when you had seen that? One, when we started talking about it in the group before it was like made public, and two, now that more things are coming out, what are some of the things maybe that you're hearing that we can put out there? Obviously, not everything can be released, but like, what are some of the things you're hearing, and what were your thoughts on the situation?
Thoughts? I don't know. I was very negative on the entire process that Bo put himself through and put out there, and kind of the spectacle he made of everything. So I'm surprised, but not, that he didn't follow through with the commitment, and that, we're in the position that we're in. I'm glad we're not trying to go through that whole thing again, and it's just 3 schools this time, so that the graphics will be much smaller. But I mean, everything we're hearing now it just seems, I don't know, almost like jealousy in a kind of weird way. And I'm not one who I don't know that I've ever defended Iowa or Tom Brands, but here we go. They did the right thing. They didn't capitulate to his demands. They followed what their compliance office said. They were asking for things that weren't allowed within the rules. And just because some other schools may be getting around it and operating in that gray area, not all compliance departments are the same. And we said the same exact thing when we talked about the Ferrari situation. Every school has a different compliance office. Every school's compliance office interprets things differently. And with everything that Iowa's gone through with some of the other scandals and dealing with Ferrari stuff and all that, I don't think they probably have a lot of wiggle room. And Tom's going to be told no, in situations where he otherwise may have some flexibility. But for them to want travel paid for and all these things that aren't allowed within the current rules, just because other teammates may be getting it at other schools doesn't mean that they can do it legally. So it's just kind of a messy situation. And I feel bad for Melvin, honestly, out of everyone, because let me step back. Every interaction I've ever had with Bo has been fantastic. Super nice, respectful young man.
Same with the family as well. I've only talked to them maybe twice, but always respectful.
Yeah. And I got to talk to him for a little bit when he was at Virginia Tech on one of his trips there. Super great guys. Melvin was super nice too. I feel like he flies under the radar a lot as part of the family because he's the quiet one. Yeah. And he's damn talented, and he's going to be, one of the top recruits next year. And now he's kind of getting drugged down with this as well. And I feel worse for him than I feel for anybody else in this situation.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And, I think the thing that had been said is everyone expected them to be a package deal. But again, all of these things working as fast as they did, both, hearing the news from, within DMs and text messages, the news becoming public pretty quickly afterwards, and then Melvin's updated graphic pretty quickly afterwards as well, all happened very quickly. Excuse me, all happened pretty fast. So like that was the surprising part for me, but it definitely sucks because if we're listening to what people are saying and Iowa was his dream school, then it shouldn't have mattered what other people are getting from their schools, right? Like it
It's not like he
shouldn't.
got a bad deal. I
That's what I'm
mean,
saying. Like
let's
if
be
all you
real.
wanted was to be treated the same way, again, using his little brother's words in this, if all they wanted was to be treated the same way, like, sorry, you don't get that. You know what I mean? Like in your in relationship, you don't get to break up with somebody, but still say to your new person, hey, listen, that person used to do this. I need you to do this for me. Like, try it, see how that works out for you, right? Like
Kevin, say that to your wife tonight. Let me know how that goes.
it doesn't work out. He's sick enough. He's already one leg in the grave. So
He can blame the NyQuil. It's fine.
it wouldn't be a fair fight anyway. So it just doesn't work, man. It really doesn't work for me. Kevin, what are your thoughts?
I just wrote down like it's standard operating procedure and recruiting, like that doesn't exist. There's
Yeah.
all these different schools have different things. You know what I know other people weren't getting, like their own line of Rudis gear, like I'm
Collectible line.
sure there was something coming back from that, right? Like he didn't
Yeah.
volunteer his time and name and everything towards that. So I don't know, man. For me, the whole thing, like it just I liked the recruiting piece and I was positive for it, right? Like I remember speaking up and saying, hey, the kid's having fun with this process. He seems to be a hardworking and committed kid. Everything that I've seen or heard about him and what like you guys all just said, very positive. But it's like, man, this doesn't add up. Like I don't like, and hey, again, people have their own religious feelings or whatever. But to me, it's like you're throwing God into this tweet about why you may change your mind. It's like it seems like that's not what happened. You know, it just it doesn't add up, and I don't like it, and it feels weird. And recruiting is weird and different now, and it just keeps getting weirder and more different. And Iowa will be fine. I'm sure Bo Bassett will be fine, and it ultimately will just be a blip at the guy's career. He's not the first superstar recruit who's changed their mind, once or twice. This just had a lot more fanfare and stuff around it, right? So, but he'll be fine. I'm sure he'll win a national title or two for whichever school he ends up at.
Yeah. Agreed. He certainly will be fine. And the way that he was treated is certainly not congruent to how others are treated either. Right. I don't remember seeing the Jack's Forest line anywhere or anything else. Right. So if you're banking on that, just doesn't, no one situation is the same as the other. It just doesn't work that way. Austin, your thoughts on Bassett, and then also the, I guess, like the current climate of recruiting. What obviously you're in the EIWA when it comes to a lot of the recruiting that you look at. So it's a little bit different at Ivy's and the EIWA, even down to the verbiage, which obviously we'll get to with Crookham and him getting his Olympic or his medical. But like, what are your thoughts on the current recruiting landscape, and then also the Bassett situation and how it kind of merges into it?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with what Claunch was saying. Some of these things maybe don't make sense to me. It's obviously they're from Pennsylvania, committed to Iowa. Were like flights never a thought to anybody during this whole process? Like, who's paying for that? Was this never brought up? I mean, and I think it's public knowledge out there that he was offered 7 figures per year
Yeah.
NIL package. So a few flights a year seems like a drop in the bucket. out of that. I'm not a finance guy. I'm not an accountant, but I feel like was maybe worked into that to get to that number. I mean, I don't know. It just
It's like they give you a company car and then you try to bill them for mileage.
exactly. Yeah. It's like, what else do you really need or want on top of that? I understand, you want to go train and this and that, and you can only do camps and clinics because you're out of the 250-mile radius. And I mean, Iowa can make something happen, I'm sure. I mean, people have done this. They've skipped their senior year and moved. We saw Kyle Snyder do that out to Olympic Training Center. Different scenario, I know, but there are probably ways to do that. Rent an apartment there. Do homeschooling for a year. Kasich did it, going from Bethlehem Catholic to Penn State. Again, it's within that 250-mile radius. I get it, and he was training at M2, so it's not affiliated with the school. But I think there are ways around this. So I think if they really wanted to work this out, I think there were probably ways to do that. Yeah, it just seems odd because back when we were getting recruited, flights and close to home were factors everyone had to consider. No one was paying for flights back then. That was on your own dime. If I'm from Pennsylvania, I wanted to wrestle in the Midwest, no one's paying for my flights except me and my family, right? So a lot of stuff used to come into play back in the day. It's different now. So yeah, I don't know what to think. It's just hard to believe that flights and paying for this and that was never really discussed up until today, and he committed 4 months ago. I don't want to say shady things happen, but it seems like something shady may have happened. Someone went back on their word, or someone wanted more than what was agreed to, or maybe someone else came in and was, again, still recruiting. So I don't know. We're only hearing one side of the story, I think. We haven't really heard anything official from Iowa. I doubt we'll hear anything. But again, to Robbie's point, I think it was Robbie that said it, like they've had some incidents in the past with compliance, and the AJ Ferrari thing coming back into mind. It's like, they
The
took some
coach's son gambling. Like,
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. There were some things that happen, and maybe they're on a tight leash with compliance after some of these things, so I don't know what to think of it. It just, a lot of these things don't really add up to me, but again, we don't know the full story.
Yeah, and I don't think we're going to hear anything from Iowa either, right? Like, I think everything is going to be a secondhand, and mostly because coaches cannot make statements about,
Exactly.
it's
Yeah.
not their athlete.
unsigned athletes, right? Like, I can't, he can't say anything about Bo Bassett. So if anything does come out, it's because it's, it's a coach sending a text message saying, this is how Tom feels, right? Like, I had a conversation with Tom and this is how Tom feels, but it's obviously going to be in that gray area of hearsay, right? But this is the new age of recruiting. And for me, that's that you either embrace this because it's about to change, and something that I think we'll dive into probably next episode as well, along with rule changes, is the rev share portion of it, and how there's certain schools that are opting in and there's certain schools that are not when it comes to wrestling, or at least designating which sports they're going to opt in, or they're going to designate that money to. But this is the new age of recruiting. It just is what it is. So I think wrestling is going to be the most fickle of all of them. Because for me, somebody who watches a ton of other sports, if you look at what Texas Tech softball is doing right now, they're signing some of the biggest softball recruits in the country right now.
A whole lot of shadiness behind that, though.
There's a lot of money that is, I mean, and so that's the thing, is like, some schools are going to say, here, blank check, go do it. Other schools are going to be like, no, not happening. And in wrestling, you're going to hear a lot of no. And that should be unsurprising to people, is there's going to be a lot of, no's that are going to come down the pipeline. And I'm unsurprised that comes from Iowa. Iowa is known for being stubborn on the wrestling mat. You think that they're going to just bust open the checkbook, right? Like, so, it's very interesting, but like I said, this is the new age of recruiting, and I think we're only obviously getting part of the story. There's always one side, there's another, and then somewhere in the
There's the
middle,
truth.
is the truth, right? So we're only going to get one side, but I mean, for me, I hope that Bo makes, I guess, in this case, the second best decision that he can make. His three schools are Penn State, Oklahoma State, and Nebraska. I think it's truly down to Penn State and Oklahoma State, and mostly because of a couple things. One, putting the big ass personalities and personas of Bo Bassett and AJ Ferrari in one wrestling room. I don't think the Bob Devaney Center is big enough, first of all. And
At
I
least
don't,
they're not
I'm,
at the Coliseum anymore.
and I'm not, yeah, and I'm not saying that from an ego standpoint. I'm saying because these guys have huge personas that I don't know can, can be kind of quelled into one space, right? There's a lot to navigate there. Secondly, if we're talking about NIL deals, and again, I'm going to go back to something that I spoke with Willie about, and I even spoke about it on the show, is like Nebraska is going to take care of their guys. So Antrell Taylor's, Brock Hardy's, their guys when it comes to NIL more than the guys that are coming in. And I even think that he said that, Antrell Taylor is his NIL deal is most likely bigger than AJ Ferrari's, right? AJ Ferrari is coming in, but the numbers and things like that, they're not equal with the guys that have been shooting in the gym with them for the longest time. So if money is a factor, which let's face it is. I don't care what anybody says. In this era of recruiting, money is certainly a factor. NIL is a factor. Before it used to be scholarship. Now it's NIL money. So I think that's a factor. But I think he ends up going to Penn State. I'm pretty sure when we talked about Bo when we were still doing Intermat, I said I'd be surprised if he even left the East Coast. So for him to go to Iowa and now decommit, I'm like, okay, I'm surprised, but I'm not surprised, right? Because I didn't even see him leaving the East Coast as it was, right? So, and mostly because his family is so tight knit. We've literally been using the family's words, the little brother's words, and Bo's words, all of them collectively throughout this entire conversation. So, we'll certainly see what happens, but I think it's Penn State.
I think the weird thing though, like with the argument of trying to get things through the school and get what they want and all these perks, arguably they made it more difficult and complicated to get a bigger NIL deal than he currently had, because the deal that he got with Iowa was under the old rules, was unchecked, didn't have to go through the clearinghouse, and pretty much unmonitored.
Yep.
And now anything he gets, unless he signs within the next 4 days and is paid out within the next 4 days, it's not going to be that big thing, because it's not going to, the clearinghouse isn't going to allow that to go through. They're not going to allow 7 figures to somebody who currently isn't even on a world team. So, I mean, I don't know. We know that all this stuff is not above board. We know a lot of things happen, under the table, and that there's going to be deals and people are going to be compensated. But to make it happen legitimately, they just made it a lot more difficult.
I feel like God probably knew that, though. You know what I mean? Like, he probably knows the deadlines for this stuff.
How does he feel about quick visits?
Hey, I guess we'll find out if they're gonna do any more of these visits before he makes a decision.
It won't be.
But no, I don't know, man. It's tough. It seems all messed up. I don't like it. And I'll be honest with you, I'm pretty happy with, like, I know there's gonna be a lot of unintended consequences with the rev share stuff and changing or whatever. But this version of it sucks, man. Just everybody's kids getting recruited away from everybody else every other year. Money's just getting thrown around. Like, I'm glad people are getting paid for their name, image, and likeness and have some chance to do that. But yeah, we got to be done with this shit.
Yeah. Until it gets regulated, it's probably just going to get worse. But I want to flip to another situation with Cody Chittum. And this was kind of last week's rumor mill of what everyone was talking about. with Chittum, and it was everybody saying, well, you know, Cody Chittum is no longer going to Ohio State. If you watch, what was that, episode 2 or 3 of this? I told you that, right? Without saying Cody Chittum's name, we told you that. So if you paid attention, you fully understood that that's who we were talking about. So with that, what is the situation with Cody Chittum? The tweets and things that were saying he was, and I think I thought I had it bookmarked, but I might not. I'm trying to look for it right now. But the tweets that were saying that I did find one, but the tweets that were saying that he probably got his ass kicked in the Ohio State room, and then he this that whatever, completely false. And I know that because he was never at Ohio State. He committed there. He made a verbal commitment, but he was never there to practice with them, is what I'm told. So that didn't happen. When he left Iowa State, he was home. He was back in Tennessee, where he's from. And he was there for, I think, 2 months. So even when he made that verbal commitment to Ohio State, he was home and he was, back with his family. And I believe that's where he's been for the most part. So he is going to be going to UTC, which is super familiar for him. He's close with those coaches. He's been close to those coaches since he was younger, even though he went to Blair. Anytime he was home, I'm sure he was, probably not at UTC, but he could go there and train considering it's, the RTC rule and everything else. Now the other one that I had seen, and this is no shade at the GOAT follower, but I really disagree with how he's trying to characterize Chittum and Ferrari, because their situations aren't parallel situations at all. Because Cody Chittum, while he may have made a commitment to Iowa and spent a gray shirt year at Iowa, he was never enrolled there. He was only enrolled at Iowa State. He never even went to Ohio State, just said he was going to be going there. And now he's at UTC. So him and Ferrari situations, not different, not at all the same. Even though I know Ferrari has said he's going here and there and there and here, as well as Cody has, but they're not the same in the sense of AJ
reasoning
was, yes, AJ was legitimately trying to go to those schools, right? He was essentially had the okay to go. Everything was very different situations. I would say that if anyone is talking about moving schools or anything else like that, we should look to, and I love this person, I love his family, awesome family, but we should look to the Kirkley situation. He was all around. Pictures of him in every single singlet. He was in practice rooms, all those different things. So that situation is probably the one that I'm like, okay, that's probably closer to anything than, this Chittum situation is. But that's the update on Chittum that I have gotten. He's going to be going to UTC. He loved the fact that he was back home. He felt more comfortable being back home, being around family and everything else. So he's going to be, staying in Tennessee. And, he was never even at Ohio State. So that's what I got for Chittum. What do you guys make of this situation? Austin, what are your thoughts on, the Cody Chittum situation? Obviously things didn't work out at Iowa State, but he's going to be going to a different school. What do you make of all these things?
Yeah, well, Iowa State must not have been paying for his flights, so that's why he's got to stay home. But yeah,
they just got $1 million in rev share. They can afford it.
Yeah, they could probably afford that. Yeah, whatever. To me, it's, again, maybe it's old fashioned, but if you're going to commit to a school, maybe try and enroll there. The Ohio State commit to me was weird, and a few weeks later he's committing to UTC. It's part of me is and it's not just Chittum, it's a lot of these guys. They're like, hey, make up your damn mind, commit to something when you know it's right. It's stop having us guess, because it's starting to turn into the pros. Durant just got traded to his 5th team or 16, whatever. It's come on, but in all seriousness, if you're comfortable at home, good. UTC may not be a Big Ten program, a top program, but they got some good guys coming in. I think Cooper Flynn's in there now, and they got that
Carter
heavyweight.
Deeps.
Yeah, Neves. So yeah, they got a nice little transfer portal group in there, and good. And if being at home makes you comfortable, makes you want to wrestle hard and succeed, great, go for it. But you just got to stop with these commitments and not really enrolling or anything like that. It's just kind of, it's just what guys are doing now, I guess. I don't know. Maybe I'm the old guy screaming at the sky again, but
No, I think that's the right feeling. I mean, it's a different era, it's a different feeling, and every coach we talk to says the same thing. Recruiting is a whole different animal now, and the way you have to approach it, and even with the guys who are on your roster, you have to currently, constantly make sure they're happy and feel good, which speaks a lot to the teams that have like a real strong family dynamic, and that don't see a lot of instability there. So I think when you find the right team, and generally speaking, I mean, I think if you find the position or the school that you feel comfortable with, and the coaching staff that you feel comfortable with, other than the coaching staff leaving, or you having some change of heart or wanting to do something different academically, commitment should be a commitment. But I don't know. Now we can both yell at the clouds together.
Yeah. Kevin?
I mean, I like Kyle Rochelle. I think he does a really good job, obviously, getting people to buy into what they're doing there. I think I've talked about here, like Chattanooga, Tennessee is just a cool place in general. Like, or at least, I don't know. I enjoyed the last time I was there. I think we were there for like 2 days and checked out the aquarium, which is badass, and drove around the campus. Good times. But I mean, I don't know. I feel bad. Like Chittum, I feel like has too much of a. It's just stop saying you're going to go a place and then change your mind. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying about him. I mean like anybody. Like he was going to go to Iowa. He never actually was at Iowa, right? Like the whole Ferrari stuff happened then, and then that's when he transferred to Iowa State. So really, he's only ever been at one other school.
Yeah,
wrestled hard. Didn't work out for one way or another, one reason or another, and now he's moving on. So, yeah, I think whatever people are saying about him is not. He's a hardworking guy who didn't reach his goals yet, and I'm sure he just wanted to change the scenery. So, more power to him. I'm excited for Chattanooga. They are going to have a good squad coming in next year with the transfers. They lost a couple guys in the transfer portal too. I think Blake Borman's at Purdue and Sidoris is at Virginia Tech, but they'll be just fine.
Yeah. And maybe we'll check in with them preseason, see how things are going. Maybe one of us will talk to coaches and stuff like that, get some interviews. Now, we've talked about recruiting a good bit when it comes to the wrestler side of things. Now, on the opposite side of that is the coaching. And I was able to catch up with Scott Green. That full interview will be out tomorrow morning. If you're listening to this on Tuesday, at least. If you're listening to this on Thursday, both of them are out. Wait till the end and click on the damn interview, and you can listen to it. But I was able to talk to Scott Green, who had honestly a pretty cool tweet today. Me and him, he was an English teacher at SEM, and I have an English degree, so me and him actually used to talk about nerdy English things. So him putting out
Bunch of nerds.
Yeah, bunch of nerds. I know. I have a degree in English. Proud of it. But him putting out an Emily Dickinson poem today was pretty funny. Just with the whole situation of, people having the spotlight and everything else. So go check that out. But the conversation that I had with Scott Green was awesome. And we talked about recruiting. We talked about why he is staying at Army and his relationship with Kevin Ward, as well as his relationship with Troy Nickerson, as well as his relationship with some of the wrestlers like Bo Bartlett and Lachlan McNeil, and watching them wrestle and, at last year or 2 years ago at NCAAs. But here's a clip from that interview with Scott Green that comes out tomorrow. So obviously things in college sports in general are drastically changing, right? There's NIL, there's rev share that's happening, but that's not something that you guys have to really worry about being a service academy. Do you guys kind of have a sigh of relief when it comes to that? And have you talked to Troy about that? Because obviously, like I said, he comes from, being in that sector of college recruiting and college athletics, where you do have to worry about NIL and rev share and all those other things that are changing on the college sports landscape.
Listen, I think, like I've said it a few times to our staff, like not having that stuff clouding our day is our superpower. We can sell kids on that this is you're going to graduate with the guys that you came in with, and this is the most stable college wrestling team in the country. You're not gonna, your senior picture isn't going to be with kids you met 2 months ago. No 3-month rentals, like none of that. And for the kid that's attracted to that, that's really really good. Thinking about going through a couple job searches and things like that, thinking about the fact that some of my peers, they have to re-recruit their team every March. As soon as the NCAA is over, they got to go and they can focus on high school recruiting, but they're re-recruiting their team, and they're looking in the portal I've never even looked in the portal. I think I have a login, but I've never looked in it, so that allows you to direct your focus into other areas, which I think we've shown that we can really help kids through like development and those type of things, where you're not worried about that aspect of it all the time. The team you have, who's coming to practice every day, and you can really lean into that as a superpower, as a strength.
I loved everything that Scott Green had to say about recruiting, and what he had to say, obviously is that recruiting at, a service academy is obviously different, right? It is very different to recruit at service academies. Austin, you talked with Coach Colott at Navy, and he alluded to the same thing. But it's really interesting to see how people handle recruiting. And obviously we've been kind of digging deep on how wrestlers have been handling that. But like to hear another coach say, these are the conversations that we're having about re-recruiting our own guys, or at least them having to re-recruit their own guys every year, was super interesting for me. But as I said, on the other side of the recruiting stuff is always the other coaches. And Scott Green is staying at Army, staying on with Troy Nickerson. But we've got a couple other schools that now need to fill head coaching positions, one of them being Northern Colorado, the other one being Campbell. And since Kevin is rocking his Campbell hat, I'm going to come to him. What are your thoughts on that position? Who do you see maybe that might want to take on, leading the Camels to the next level?
It's going to be interesting to see, man. I feel like that's well. First of all, I think it's Josh Heil is one of the coaches on staff there. Obviously, an alumni. His brother Dean coaching at George Mason, if I remember correctly. There you go. Yep. So honestly, like both those guys, I think if you like, would make sense, right? If Dean wants to try to get a head coaching job, if he feels ready to do it, he could slide in there with his brother, get something going there. I know I've seen a bunch of tweets from Dean just about, the fundraising that they were doing and everything going on around there. So that's a fun idea. I don't know. It's interesting because I feel like we talked a couple weeks ago when we were talking about the Northern Colorado spot, and obviously the athletic department supports them and what they're doing. The situation with Campbell is now super weird because the stability, the athletic department basically was just like, hey, remember those things you had to help recruit and keep people here and like be effective? None of that is yours anymore, where it's all going somewhere else. But
as we opt into rev share.
Yeah, but keep doing your thing though. Looks great. So I don't know, man. I think that there's gonna be it's scary. It's really it's scary because that program. I mean, I've didn't know it existed until Colott started doing cool things with it, and then we watched Scotty take over and get their first All-American and all this stuff. So it's I'm scared. I want somebody to be able to come in to get some buy-in from the athletic department to continue to do good things there because it's been very impressive what they've been able to do over the years. Coming out of the SoCon. So
yeah, I agree with that. Robbie, your
well,
thoughts?
I love the SoCon love on this podcast.
A lot of
we talk
SoCon
Chattanooga. Shout out Daniel Elliott. Yeah,
a lot of SoCon love. We don't, as we said, we don't just cover the big boys on this show. We're gonna make sure that these other schools get some love as well. Robbie, your
what
thoughts?
Other head coaches the kids are going to bring dead snakes around? I mean, the Elliott boys are good for something.
The Wildlings.
Yeah, entertainment if nothing else.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's such a tough situation. I mean, kind of what Kevin hit on. There's so much instability right now that I think it's going to really narrow the applicant pool because you don't know what you're walking into other than, you're losing scholarships, you're losing a recruiting budget. Yes, Scotty did a great job raising funds, but do we know for sure that money's actually protected? Is that put somewhere else, or are we going to lose that? Like we've seen other programs lose money. It's I don't know. It's hard. I think the best hands that would probably be in would be a Campbell grad. I think Josh Heil, I don't know that he's ready to be a head coach, but he's a Campbell grad, did great there. He's been a good assistant coach. Maybe give him the reins for a couple of years and see what he can do with the program.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other name that comes to mind is Tony Ramos. He's already in North Carolina, as it is North Carolina with what is it, the second most Division I teams in the country. Yep. So him already being in North Carolina and obviously us knowing that he wants to be a head coach, I would point to him. It just depends on
a hard situation to walk into.
That's what I'm saying. Like that situation is tough though, right? Like the scholarships and even though it seems like there is some sort of financial backing with what the fundraising was, that's still a tough situation. I think for him it's probably down to both of the positions that are open with Northern Colorado as well. So we'll certainly see if he chooses to kind of throw his hat in the ring for one or either of them or both of them, whatever it really is. But his name comes to mind in this situation as well. And obviously the other guys that were in the mix with the Army job with, Kellen Russell as well as Nate Angle. I know Nate isn't interested in the Northern Colorado position, but
doesn't even have to change his color scheme.
Yeah, maybe Campbell, right? It is. I think it's obviously on the East Coast, so it's closer to family. Pretty sure is I think his wife's family is in Pennsylvania. So
Yeah, they're from York.
yeah, so they're pretty. That'd be a lot closer than where they are now.
Might as
So
well be Maryland. Come on, let's be real.
So who knows if he throws his hat in the ring? But yeah, Austin, what are your thoughts on the Campbell situation? Scotty Sentis stepping down, moving on to different things. We started this conversation talking about people moving on to different things, but what are your thoughts on the Campbell situation?
Yeah, kind of what you guys are saying. It's a tough situation to walk into. Whoever does get that job is gonna have to do a hell of a job fundraising and kind of being self-sustainable, right? With pretty much no buy-in from the athletic department, and not to be too negative about it, but what kind of big names would want to walk into a position like that as well, with very little buy-in, having to do everything yourself. It doesn't seem like a great situation for a guy, in my opinion, like a guy like Ramos or Kellen Russell or someone like that. I feel like they would want something that's a little more established and, a little more buy-in from the athletic department, but it could be a chance for someone young that's hungry and wants to prove that they can do it. And, I think, again, not to be too negative, but keeping a program like that alive would be a big step. I feel like once we heard the news of them not really dropping it, but like slowly dropping it, we all kind of had that thought of, oh, it's just a matter of time till it's gone. But Sentis did a great job fundraising, keeping that program around for a little bit, and hopefully someone else comes in and can sustain that. But to get it competitive again, it's going to need a lot of love, I think.
Yeah, it's like death by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah.
I mean, 2 years ago, that program beat Wyoming in the first Battle of the Barn things on UFC Fight Pass, and last year it was a close
duel.
Actually
a really good duel.
Yeah. And so it's a good program with depth and like multiple national qualifiers, which is hard to do out of the SoCon. So.
Yeah. And they've really built up that duel too, right? Like both coaches
they've done a lot with
into it, and like they really did a lot with that. UFC Fight Pass has done.
Scotty did a lot with them. They've done multiple different venues with them. They did the Battle at Bragg with UNC a couple of years ago. So they've done a lot of really cool stuff. And Scotty was really one of the guys that was on the forefront with them, with UFC and trying to get creative with venues and doing different things there. So I'm hopeful that continues. I mean, it's a great program for it. It's good for them to have that agreement and have some income from that as well. Maybe they'll have the next head coach will be able to have an actual mustache growing contest with Mark. It'd be pretty tough though.
He's got his little baby faced.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, He was a great coach, honestly. The things that he did, being able to take that to the next level, were awesome. And we wish him luck. Maybe we'll get him, on here, and maybe one of us will reach out to him. I know Robbie, you've reached out to him to do an interview, so hopefully sometime soon we'll be able to talk to him.
He did just do an episode with Vision Quest
Vision Quest, yeah.
and it was a really good interview. I mean, I think Scotty's gonna be great for this position. We've seen, I mean, all of us, I think, can speak to the success we've seen from wrestlers in business in the past. I feel like it's kind of tapered off over the last few years, so it'll be good to be kind of revitalized. And some of the chapters are more bought in than others, but Scotty speaks to a lot of it of we know how good of workers athletes are or wrestlers are, and what they can provide to any job they come into. So having somebody like him as a spokesman for the group will be great.
Yeah, I agree. Best of luck to him though with anything that he does. I mean, he's obviously a great guy, and you want to see him succeed for sure. Let's bring it back to the Crookham talk that Austin started off. So Austin, I'm gonna come back to you on this with being our resident EIWA coverage guy. What did you make of this? Did you hear that this was a thing that could potentially happen? And what are your thoughts on Crookham getting his medical red shirt?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was kind of the writing was on the wall there when he did not, he wasn't able to compete in the postseason. It was either, hey, I can compete 80%, 90%, whatever it was, or throw in the towel and get my medical. They were pretty confident he was going to get that, and I'm glad the conference followed through and allowed that. So yeah, it's good that he'll have 3 more years. It's but on the flip side of that, he was kind of on a pitch count, I could say, this past year being a little dinged up, and then this injury happened. So expect probably a little bit more of a pitch count coming up in the next season or so. That's just me kind of spitballing here and just making assumptions based on his past of injuries. And with this pretty serious injury, it's going to take some time to get back and recover. So, but they have a lot of depth there. Matty Lopes hopped in last year as a true freshman, almost qualified for NCAAs with very minimal mat time. And like I said, Mason Ziegler down there, they have a lot of good young guys coming up that can fill in those shoes for duels. But, it's hard to replace a guy like Crookham in a duel when you need it, especially when the match is on the line, right? Lehigh, they were really close in some duels that they felt like they should have won more without Crookham in there. But, so they might take some lumps on the dual meet side, but come postseason, they'll be locked and ready to go, I think.
Do you think they used past discretions of not getting red shirts for their argument?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you're kind of bringing up the Josh Humphreys thing.
Yep.
I think that was a little different situation. I think that was a little bit of a Brennan situation that we have from Little Rock, where that injury occurred in that free year, and they weren't going to get that back. And he had his 4 postseasons, and I don't think he was going to get one. But then he kind of went in the transfer portal and kind of had some feelers to see if anyone else could get him another year, and no one really could. So, but yeah, I mean, you never know with Lehigh and being in the Patriot League as a overall conference. I think medicals are a little harder to come by than say the Big 10, Big 12, those big conferences there. So yeah, there's always that worry being a smaller school. And, I think he hit all the criteria. So I don't think there was much of a worry, but you just never know anymore.
Yeah. With him saying that he could have gone like 80%, right? Like I'm at 80%, I'm at 75%. I could probably wrestle through conferences, and then wrestle at NCAAs, but it wouldn't be his best.
Yeah.
But I think, they obviously explored this option before having him step back on the mat, which I think was smart. But I'm glad that he got it, right? In this situation, he certainly deserved to have his medical red shirt. We've seen other guys that have gotten theirs in previous years. Some people have been obviously abusing the shit out of these extra years that we've seen lately. But we also did get our first and only 5-time NCAA champion, which I don't care how you feel about Carter Sirachi. That's still pretty damn cool. But I'm glad that Crookham, who does everything right. You want to see the sport give back to the people that do everything right. Um,
And like we
get
kind of
get
talked
money.
about in our group chat the other day too, just Lehigh in general, always known for, being the guys that are above board. There's really no shadiness ever going on there.
Yeah.
Which maybe to their own fault because they're not getting these high level recruits and, things like that with exorbitant NIL money. But, they're stand up guys. They're some of the best guys, I think around the country here. So it's good when good people get good karma thrown back at them like that. So kind of to your point there, I agree.
Yeah. Robbie, your thoughts on Crookham getting his medical red shirt?
I mean, I think it's great. He deserved it. I mean, it wasn't shady about anything. It was legit. I'm glad to see a situation like that actually kind of being rewarded and used correctly and not just as a way to get more eligibility. So I'm glad he got it.
Yeah. Kevin, any thoughts?
I mean, this is what that's for. He didn't hardly wrestle at all. If being ranked were to mess up your eligibility, then certainly he would have had that messed up because he was ranked number one pretty much all year until he was like, I'm out. I'm not doing this. But rather than just reiterate the same stuff that everyone else said, I'm gonna say I really liked Ryan Price at Lehigh, and his Twitter handle is Price is right, and that's hilarious to me. We had him on the podcast on Blood Round once, and he was as funny as I hoped he would be. So
And
yeah,
Nuki Brown.
shout out to Ryan Price.
Yeah. I'm big fan of Mr. Nookie Brown. That man is hilarious. Always had good conversations with him as well. No, I mean, obviously we're, Lehigh does things the right way. They always have. And, being from the Lehigh Valley, and I mean, I covered them for years, working for the hometown newspaper. So I was able to cover them and interview Santoro and interview those guys and be around them, be in the room. I mean, I even trained in that room when I was a fighter as well. So like, I always have space for Lehigh and any of those guys that come out of that room because they're doing the right things at Lehigh. But no, I'm glad that Crookham will be back. I think 133 will be an awesome weight class with the guys that are going to be there. Ayala, Bird, now Crookham coming back too. So it's certainly going to be a great season. So I'm really looking forward to it. Gentlemen, I think those are all the topics we wanted to hit. I think next week we'll talk a little rev share. We'll talk about the rule changes. We'll probably have my assumption is that we'll have Bo Bassett's decision by next week. Maybe that's wishful thinking.
It would
Hopefully
just be narrowed down to 2.
yeah, I mean, hopefully we don't get another graphic, right? UPJ, sorry, but you guys are not part of the mix this time. So yeah, hopefully we do have his decision. If I'm putting money on it, I'm saying that it's Penn State, honestly. So because if they're asking to train in the room or anything else like that, I'm pretty sure that taking the 90-minute drive is very possible. Even though I mean, PJ Duke, if KD was on Bosch and Willie show I think last week, and he said PJ Duke was literally in the Penn State room one time before Final X, or at least
At
like
Lehigh
a
a lot.
stretch of this. Yeah, he was at Lehigh a good bit. So, you know, let's call it what it is. Like you can get stuff done if you really want to get stuff done. Um, you know, so we'll see what happens with Bo Bassett and some of these other coaching hires. As of right now, I haven't really heard anybody that is in the mix on those. I've reached out to a couple people, but don't really know kind of what the situation holds for either Northern Colorado or Campbell. Do you guys have anything else before we close out?
I
Kevin?
did reach out. I mentioned it last week. I did reach out to Coach Nickerson. We are going to interview next week sometime, maybe the following week around July 4th time frame. I figured that's enough time between Holmes's interview with Green and July 4th Army
I
West
mean, we
Point,
should be
it's
celebrating July 4th with the Army coach.
exactly. So yeah, and he was tied up this week. He's got 700 kids at camp still in Greeley in Northern Colorado. So
Yeah.
he's still doing stuff out in Colorado, not fully moved yet. So giving him a little time to breathe. And he just did an interview with Earl on Intermat a few days ago. So check that one out as well. It was pretty good. So just figure I'm going to try and do a little bit of the same, some different questions. So anyone wants to hear anything specific, reach out to me. I'll see if I can work that into my interview here.
Yeah. And Robbie, you reach out to Scotty Sentes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll see if he has anything to say. If not, go check out Vision Quest.
Yeah.
He's got good stuff there.
The
I actually do have one thing I wanted to promote real
Nope.
whenever this second. I'll be talking to Saeed Saparov, who is an MMA wrestling coach at Killcliff Fight Club and assistant wrestling coach at Kaiser University. So excited to talk to him later this week, get his thoughts on guys transitioning from wrestling to MMA and kind of, what are the difficulties where people have been successful and just talking about it in general. So should be fun.
Yeah.
Speaking of, Pico has a fight coming up in UFC, doesn't he?
Yes, he
He
does.
just signed his contract just the other day. So there are, Pico doing some really cool things. So we're going to have some pretty good content. So be on the lookout for Scott Green coming tomorrow morning. That will be on our YouTube channel, this channel, if you're watching it on YouTube. And I'm looking into maybe hosting this also on Spotify. It is on Spotify, the audio, but Spotify does have some other options of uploading the video. So the people that there's a good amount of people that do listen to this on Apple and Spotify. So we really appreciate that. And if you do, looking at getting the video onto Spotify as well, so that you can look at our ugly mugs and see some of the tweets and things we put up on the screen as well while we're having these conversations. But be on the lookout for all the content that we just talked about. I'm also going to try to get another interview, if not this week, maybe next week, with Kurt McHenry. I know it's been a while since we probably heard from Kurt just committed to, what was that, Cal Baptist?
Cal Baptist,
Cal Baptist. So I want to talk to him about his journey and everything that he's been through from school to school, and now hopefully getting a chance to be at that NCAA tournament. There's been a number of guys that we've always said have been in the Penn State room that we feel could potentially be All-Americans. We saw it with Bear Claw last year. So maybe we see it with Kurt McHenry this year, as I'd expect him to be at 125 again. But I'm going to reach out to him and see what what his journey was like of gaining weight to be at 125 as well. But we all obviously have a number of other interviews and things. If you are listening to this on just the audio channels, head over to our YouTube channel so you can watch the interview with myself and Aaron Brooks, and then as well with Kevin and the Mantanona brothers, Brock and Bo. But yeah,
Are we at 1 million subscribers yet?
What's that?
Are we at 1 million subscribers yet?
We're not at 1 million. We are over 200. So it has taken us a month. We've gotten to 200 on YouTube. I think we have it's 60 on Spotify, and I think another 60 on Apple. So we do appreciate everybody that does watch and listen on all those platforms. We do appreciate our sponsors, Poseidon Strength, as well as Adidas Wrestling. Make sure you are using those QR codes. Make sure you're using those discount codes. All the information is below underneath the comments. Leave the comments. We love those. We love seeing the support. We love seeing even the shade thrown at us. So it's really, really fun. If you want to, like I said, follow us on any social media, or you can email us or anything else. So we appreciate everybody watching and listening, and we'll see you again next week.